I know you have a very interesting background and career. I want you to tell the audience about the hats, especially the one on the right on the end. But tell us about that, and just tell us about what surprised you most in your career as you've gone through your career.
You are very good at foreshadowing my responses.
We haven't prepared.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're going to say.
I mean, in my time as with the Postal Service, I was surprised at the ability of foreign actors, including nation states and organized crime, to impact our agency's mission and assets. And the hat that's on the right is actually from the head of a Belarusian MVD officer. I worked a large mass data compromise investigation. We recovered, this was about 2005, we recovered about 50,000 full infos. That was profiles of American victims. They included their credit card information, dates of birth, mother's maiden name. There was actually it was the subject of a congressional debate against LexisNexis in that time frame. We recovered the username and password for a mass data compromise against LexisNexis. But the police officer that was the owner of that hat, unfortunately, was arrested for working with me. Belarus is a very difficult country to negotiate from a U.S. law enforcement and diplomatic perspective, but we were able to trace 20 million credit card numbers back to his computer system, and that's an excellent example of one of the things that former CIA director James Woolsey taught me was there's little difference between a Russian businessman, a Russian politician, and a Russian organized crime figure. They're one and the same. And I think that reminds me of kind of all I did in Eastern Europe relative to chasing mass data compromises of credit card and usernames and passwords to a variety of different companies' computers. And I carried those forward into my information security practice at the Postal Service. And 2 decades later, I needed to consider how those threats kind of intersected our technology behaviors in society today. And I was very fortunate to have a great partnership, a series of great partnerships across the government relative to helping protect the 2020 elections. So Postal Service moved a little bit over 40% of ballots for the election. And, I'm just very grateful that we didn't have any cyber impacts as a result of the protections that we put in place. But I really attribute the success that we had to my understanding of the threats that that methodology, that thought process of our adversary puts into place, and what we need to shore up the technology assets that we have.
So yeah, and this goes next into the next question about what you see has changed in cybersecurity. I think you've touched on a lot of the answers that you provided and just the conversation we're having. But what changes have you seen? And maybe you can bring in some of the innovation that you've talked about, in some more detail over the time that you were at the Postal Service. But what changes do you see in cybersecurity?
So, as things change, they remain the same as well. And I'll never forget. I was sitting at my desk in San Francisco as an agent, and I received a call and it was from a colleague in Cyprus. And I had worked with him in the past on a mass data compromise, and he said, "Greg, I need your help." And the local police have recovered some computer files. They need you to take a look at them, and we need your assistance. I hopped. So he emailed me these files that he had gotten from the Cypriot police, and one of them was a bunch of domain names for a major, I'll call it a major U.S. corporation, and it had like, San Francisco .victimname.com down the line for their whole routing infrastructure. And then there was a network map, kind of a Visio diagram that showed the network topography, and then a bunch of credit card numbers. And I was like, we've got a wild one here. This was a Thursday afternoon. I'll never forget. I walked into my boss's office and I said, "I need to go to Cyprus immediately." And he said, "Greg, make it happen." And so Saturday, I was on the next flight to Cyprus, and we got there and we learned about the Cypriot National Police. I met with them, and they gave me a copy of the computer hard drive that was recovered, imaged it, and found this whole dialogue of activity that had occurred. And the suspect in Cyprus had been working with a German national, and he was they were talking about how to hack into computer systems, and they were targeting, this was 2004-ish, network administrators with phishing emails, and as soon as the victim would open the attachment that had the malware or click on the link that downloaded the malicious software, they would escalate privilege and have the run of the show. What really surprised me was that it wasn't just the credit card information that had been compromised. I recovered a series of CAD drawings of a U.S. Navy ship, and that was extremely concerning. I engaged NCIS immediately, and off of the information that I had recovered from the drive in Cyprus, I was able to articulate the probable cause to be made in Germany for the arrest of the suspect that actually had done the hacking activities. The Bundeskriminalamt, my colleagues in the Bundeskriminalamt, took my information, got the warrant, arrested the suspect, and we were able to go over and actually sit down. It was a huge group of U.S. law enforcement officers who had converged in Germany in order to be able to understand this particular situation. And, I fast forward 20 years, or maybe it's 16, 17 years now. And the companies that I'm looking at and the specific need of CMMC and the types of things that we need to do, I'm not sure there's been the change in cybersecurity that needs to be made. And I think today, a law enforcement officer sitting at their desk in San Francisco could receive that same call and have to respond to compromised controlled technical information from a defense supply chain provider anywhere in the world. And I think that there's a lot that we need to do in order to be able to raise the level of play of cybersecurity across the country. And, I think that's kind of a call to, and you kind of asked me to talk about innovation. And I think that's one area where I love to try to think about how we can address these issues. And I follow a very simple framework. He's published several books on innovation. He's a professor at the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. He refers to innovation as the 4 C's: compete, collaborate, control, and create. And for us, from a cybersecurity perspective, we are competing every day against the threats that are trying to impact our employees and our technology assets. And we need to recognize that that is a competition, and one that requires our constant focus. And one of the things that I love to do at the Postal Service was collaborate. And FedEx, totally different set of stories, victim to some big ransomware problems years ago. I was very fortunate to come in after their significant emotional events and run joint tabletop exercises with them to really make sure we understood the dependencies in our supply chain on how those kinds of things might impact us and how to protect our organization accordingly. And then control, that's all about what information security is. We live in, like I told the Board of Governors, similar to a CFO, a information security practice is as good as its control infrastructure. A CFO can never provide 100% assurance that a breach or that fraud won't occur, right? Because you only have reasonable assurance with controls. And quite frankly, as an information security professional, you're irresponsible if you say you're going to be able to provide 100% assurance that an organization can't be compromised. And because you're dealing with controls, and you have to focus on making those the best controls that you can implement, where the intersection of time, money, and human focus can go to apply them, and then creating new capabilities, right? How do you continually look around the corner, integrate new technologies, new capabilities to be able to look out for the threat. And that was one of the things that I really hope the Postal Service will be able to drive forward into the future, is this biometric activity that I led at the Postal Service. I wanted to help government agencies better know their employees. And so we, at the time that I had left, we had built the fingerprint collection and ultimate biometric collection capabilities so that other government agencies would be able to leverage them to know their personnel. So really, that's kind of my framing on so many different things. So,
well, it's interesting because I work for Excellion. We're one of those Silicon Valley headquartered software companies, vendors, and we talk a lot about how we improve the security of our product. And we have a product that's actually, built with security in mind. But the whole purpose, and what I think is important that you're talking about, companies and CISOs and everybody that's focused on security needs to put security first. And there's a big discussion around that, and a big, ask of the security or the software vendors now that are in cybersecurity to build their products with security in mind, and not have it be an afterfact. And 20 years ago, it really wasn't, because we didn't have the threat landscape that we have now. So we talk a lot about that. I'm actually going to be moderating some panels later in the year where we're talking about security by design, putting that first. And it'll be interesting to see how DevSecOps takes place, right? Or transforms. And so, I mean, we're looking at it ourselves because we are a software vendor. So that's interesting. And again, I'm going to be going back and listening and taking some notes on what you just said about the 4 C's. So that's good. Good advice to any CISO. We're just about out of time. So I'd love to get to two questions. One is, so you run into a new CISO or somebody that you haven't met before, and they ask advice about how they can advance in their career. What would you say to them in just a short couple minutes if you just met somebody and they asked you that question?
Go back to that risk equation, because that's where it all starts and ends, is understand your threat, know how to account for and mitigate your vulnerabilities, know the importance of the technology assets that you have from an organizational perspective, and their importance to the business. That's kind of my pitch to a new CISO or someone trying to get into the business.
Yeah, that's good. Good advice. I think as I always ask in these interviews, kind of what people's advice is to a new person getting into the field. But I guess in this particular case, I'd say to anybody asking me that about you, I would just say, go listen to the top of this interview, because there's so much information in here that can be helpful to somebody who's looking to advance their career. So closing out, just a little bit of a personal insight into you. What do you like to do when you're not in CISO mode?
So I'm unbelievably blessed with a great family, and so I love spending time with my children. I've got 2 high school boys. We're in the midst of spring sports season. My oldest is graduating off to college next in the fall, and gonna just wish him the very best. And then I'm also an avid triathlete, swimming, biking, and running. I get a strong diet of that every day, and have a great core of friends that I work out with. So outside of that, I am also spending a lot of time trying to start up my new consultancy, 10-8, becoming an entrepreneur with the vision of building cyber resiliency into the culture of as many organizations as I can.
That's good. That's good. So on the triathlete subject, so I did a triathlon years and years ago, and it was just a goal I had. So somebody I was training with said, I said just happenstance, I want to do a triathlon. And she said, I know you can do it. There's one coming in 2 weeks. And I thought, okay, I know I can bike. I know I can run. I know I can swim. I didn't know if I could put it all together. So I went ahead and trained for it. It was in Santa Cruz or Monterey County. We had to swim in the ocean there. And I did it. It was one of the most difficult things I ever did. And then about a month later, I was telling somebody about it, and they said, so which distance was it, the international, or was it, I guess, the sprint? And I said, I don't know. Are there different lengths? I didn't have any idea. So of course I did the international one the very first time with 2 weeks training, and I haven't done one since. But it does definitely keep you in good shape. That's good.
Yeah, indeed. I love them. Right before COVID, the last one I did was actually with my friends and children, and it was great to get out. It was just a sprint, so it was great to be out there with my oldest son and having him compete. And my friends brought their children as well, so it was a whole
that's fun.
Family and friends event.
Yeah, I remember my daughters came. They were quite young then, and they were just cheering me on, running down the beach, and so it was a fun experience. So a quick question about your sons and one graduating. I mean, this past year has been so difficult with at-home learning, and I've got my nephew who's graduating as a senior. I've got a good friend whose daughter's graduating, going on to college, and the whole year has just been upside down for them. But so it's super exciting that he's graduating and heading on to college. Where is he going to go?
So my oldest, Nick, he's going to Florida Gulf Coast University.
Okay.
And so his grandparents are close by there, and
Oh, that's good.
we're looking forward to having him be able to be an eagle down there, and
Yeah.
he wants to follow in Dad's footsteps.
I was going to say, is he following in Dad's cyber footsteps?
Yes. So
That's good.
hopefully we'll find him in the ether someplace.
Very good. Awesome. Well, it would be awesome to, as he's advancing in his cyber career, you and I'd love to stay in touch. And I think it would be great to, as your son, if he's following in cyber, we could do a father-son interview at some point as he's going through his college career, just to see what he's learning and, bounce ideas off. And I would just love to have that combo, father-son. So
I'm sure he
one
would
of these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I know the audience is going to really enjoy this conversation. And so with that, we will close out our CISO Perspective interview with Greg Crabb. Thank you very much.